online, and I have some that say they studied with us. And so those online were in Ecclesiastes chapter 6. I've entitled this message, Why It's Better Than Never to Have Been Born. Now that's out of this chapter. Whoa, we got some feedback. Why it's on this chapter, why it's better to never have been born. Now he says in verse 1, there is an evil which I've seen under the sun. Anytime he uses that phrase under the sun, he's reasoning at things from man's viewpoint and not from God's viewpoint. As natural men view things, he said this is an evil, and it's common among men. A man to whom God hath given riches, wealth, and honor, so that he wanteth nothing for his soul of all that he desireth, yet God giveth him not power to eat thereof, but a stranger eateth it. This is vanity, and it is an evil disease. Now, here is another one of those evils that Solomon witnessed in his generation out there in the East years ago, thousands of years ago, but it's still prevalent today. It's still happening today. That people that are stronger than others and have no regard for the law, they take that which somebody else has worked and labored and put aside, and they take it for themselves. He said, this is a great evil. I've seen this. Men have worked for something that they wanted to enjoy, but they did not get to enjoy it because somebody else took it. He says, yet God giveth him not power to eat thereof, but a stranger eats it. This is vanity. It's an evil disease. So he wanted nothing for his soul. The first part of it says that, but yet he doesn't get to eat and enjoy that which he has because somebody stronger, somebody that is probably a lawless intruder, has taken everything from him that he has worked for. Now, this is a great evil today in America, that we are having the injustices that take place that are. And I think it comes from the point that people under a certain president said, we think they need to vent. We want to give them room to vent because they were treated as slaves and they were mistreated. So let them vent. And so they began to burn down factories and houses and businesses and told the cops, stand down. That produced a lawless society that just only a couple months ago out in California, 40 of these youths on motorcycles went into a jewelry store, broke the cases, had armed shotguns and pistols, and told those that was there, stand back. And they pointed their guns at them, and he took everything out of that jewelry store. The jewelry store had to file bankruptcy. And I'll tell you something, that is a lawless society that thinks the world owes them something, and the world doesn't owe them a thing. But that's their attitude. And this is something of what he's talking about, that a man has worked all his life. Think about the jeweler who now has to file bankruptcy, that worked to have something probably in his old age, and in just 1 hour, everything is taken from him. Well, that's just one instance that I know of. There's probably more than that it has happened in America. And I'm glad we have a president that believes in the law and believes in closed borders. We need closed borders. We need a law-abiding society so things like this that happened years ago and happens even now will not happen again. Then verse 3, if a man beget 100 children. Now in the East, to live a long life and have 100 children, that was their epitome of the success of a man's life. If a man beget 100 children and live many years, so that the days of his years be many, and his soul be not filled with good, and also that he have no burial, I say that an untimely birth is better than he. So here's what he's saying here. Here's another injustice: to live a long life with countless children and yet not be satisfied and happy. So he lived a long life, had many children, and he was empty inside. to live a long life and yet only know emptiness inside. What a travesty. We should know that there are some people that live their whole life that way, empty, without God, striving for something that's beyond their reach. And you talk to them, you witness to them, they don't have any time to come to church. They don't have any time for God. And yet you ask them, do you know for sure if you died, you'd go to heaven? And they cannot look at you in the eye and answer that question. Normally, they will just bow their head and say, well, I'm not interested, because they get under conviction. This lawless intruder did something that is repeated probably in the Muslim countries, that over and again happens time and again. And women over there, their property. We had a woman come back in a church I pastored from over there in one of those countries, that she married one of them, and said that the law backs up the husband in those countries. If he beats his wife, that's okay. She's just his possession. And she can't have any say in anything. She is a pawn to that husband. And said finally, after so many beatings, she had to leave her children and come to America. But she said, my children, when they became of age, they were teenagers when I left them, I told them to come back to America, that I would have a home here for them. And if they would have caught her, they would have put her in jail for leaving her husband. It is against the law for a wife in those countries to leave their husband or to say anything that is negative about their husband, no matter if it's an unhappy marriage, no matter if he beats the wife. She took so many beatings, she didn't want any more, so she finally left and came to America. I'll tell you, this is not talked about in these countries where these people rule, and they rule with a fist of iron, and they treat women like common slaves, and they treat them like they're some kind of a whore off of the market of slavery, and they're treated that way. And the law backs them up. I'll tell you, you ought to be fortunate tonight. You don't live in one of those countries. You live in America, because I would not want any of my children to live under that kind of burden. I would not want to be in that kind of situation. And you say, well, what about those people? Don't they need to be reached with the gospel? They don't have anything to do with the gospel. They even kill people that come in with the gospel. They want nothing to do with it. Yeah, I would like to see them saved, but it's going to take God and somebody stronger than what I am to go to one of those countries. It's an evil affliction that's a result of lawlessness, that a person works all their life and somebody else enjoys what they work for. And he said, that's a sore evil. Then he goes on to say that he has no burial. In the last part of verse 3, I say that an untimely birth is better than he. When a nation took control of another nation, when they went to war, the very epitome of disgrace and dishonor to their enemy was to throw their body out in a field and not bury it. And one of the Easterners' worst nightmare was that he would die and not be buried, not have a name to be remembered, and not have a place that somebody could honor him. He would just be like an enemy, and that was the thing that he could not get in his mind and fathom. It was to live a long life, be satisfied with children, but yet to be cast into the field and not have a place of burial. He said that is too much. That's too much to handle. And so he says an untimely birth would be better. And he's talking about a stillbirth. Now, a miscarriage would be better than to have that happen. And so he says he comes in with vanity. Verse 4, this guy comes in with vanity, and he departs in darkness, and his name shall be covered with darkness. In other words, he's going to be covered in obscurity and forgetfulness. He has no place to be remembered. He comes in thinking everything's going to be great, but it's not great. And things happen that's beyond his control. To be unburied was to dishonor that corpse. So to have a person that is going to be not thought of in the right way, not be honored, not be buried. It was better for him to be a stillborn baby or to have a miscarriage. It would have been better for him not to have been born. That's his thinking. To be unburied, that was the awfulest thing that he could ever think of that could happen to him. To have somebody throw your corpse out in a field and not bury it, that was his worst nightmare. And he could not fathom that. It'd be better to be a stillborn baby than to have that happen to you. Another injustice is it's better to enjoy what we see and what we have than to want something we don't have and not be able to enjoy that. No, verse 5, moreover, he had not seen the sun, nor known anything. This hath more rest than the other. In other words, this guy that comes in and is buried, he has a name, he is to be remembered. He's better than the one that is forgotten and lays around in obscurity in a field that nobody even knows where he is. And that happened when nations took over. Now remember, Israel's been taken captive 3 times in the Bible. 3 different times because of their sin, because of their turning from God. God raised up nations, idol usually worshiping nations, because God wanted them to be sick of idols, so he had somebody take them over that was steeped in idols worship more than they were. And they treated them miserably. They treated them like property. And they did not like the idea that God raised up people. And they even said that. These folks are worse than we are. And why would you turn us over to them? Why? What have we done? And God said, told you over and over again. I sent preachers and you stoned them. Told you what you needed to do and you wouldn't do it. So he said, now you're reaping the result of your sin. So a person that has that happen to him, that's something that he said would be better if he had a miscarriage, not ever be born. Then he goes on to say in verse 6, yea, though he live 1,000 years twice told. In other words, if he lives 2,000 years and he hadn't seen no good, do not all go to one place? Think about it. Living a long life. That's what he's saying. Now he's using hyperbole of 2,000 years. It's not possible to live that long, but he's saying if it were. And during that time, you found no good. What good would it have been for you to have lived that amount of time and enjoy no good? In other words, you're not satisfied. You're dissatisfied. You're not satisfied with what you have. And so he said it would have been better off for you to have never been born. Yea, verse 6, though he live 1,000 years twice told, yet had he seen no good. He's not satisfied. He doesn't enjoy those years that God gave him. So he said, what good is it? Do not all go to one place. In other words, even if you lived a long life, you had everything you thought, and you weren't happy, you all still go to the same place. We all die. All of us do. We all have an appointment with death. God said it's appointed unto man once to die. After this, the judgment. So he's saying we all go to the same place. What good would it have been to live the long life and be dissatisfied? That's the gist of this verse. Then he says, all the labor of man is for his mouth, verse 7. Yet the appetite is not filled. Now he works to be able to feed his stomach. He works to be able to enjoy some things in life, and yet he is not satisfied. Another 2 different illustrations of people living and not being satisfied. Why would he live and not be satisfied? Because all of his labor is for his mouth, and yet the appetite's not filled. Another thing he's talking about is you cannot meet the spiritual demands of your soul by only feeding the physical. You cannot do it. The spiritual is stronger even than the physical, and if that is neglected, you will not be satisfied. It won't happen that you'll be satisfied. I know I looked for everything in my 20s. I looked for popularity. I looked for fame. I looked for money. I could have made more money than most people would ever work in a lifetime had I stayed in sales. I had an opportunity to make money. That didn't satisfy. I looked for everything that would satisfy. Nothing did. I would go to bed sometimes. My bed would spin around from the life I lived during the day. And yet I wouldn't end it without praying. I said, Lord, I know there's got to be more to life than what I know about it. There's got to be more than what I see. And Lord, I don't know. I know you're real, but I don't know how to find you. And so if you want to let me know, I would appreciate it. I would appreciate it very much. Eventually, God sent a preacher, took an interest in me, began to visit my home. I went, I heard the gospel, like the young men said today. My eyes was open to my need of Christ, and everything then began a different and exciting walk and a different life for me and my wife. Different in every way than what it was before I got saved. It's better to enjoy what we see than to want what we don't see and never get it. That's all he's saying. You look for something, you want something, and you can never quite get it. It's always out of your reach. And there's something about wanting something and never having it, but yet being satisfied with what we have. And I'm sure you're the same way as I am. I'm satisfied with what God gives me. I've never wanted more than that since I've been saved. I know that God can give you anything that you need. I've had him supply cars when I needed them. I've had him give me clothes, more clothes than I could ever wear at one time, give me shoes. And I mean, there's just nothing I ever had a need of that God didn't supply. The stillborn comes without any meaning attached to it, no name. He's not named usually. And he goes out into obscurity. That stillborn baby, that baby will be resurrected in heaven. That baby in heaven will be given to those that lost them prematurely, and they will rejoice in heaven. They'll never see that baby here on this life, but in the life to come, they could. Even though life is short-lived for some people, I have known people, and you have too, that were very happy with their life, even though some of them only lived 40, 50, 60 years. And most of the time, those that I have come across that were happy were those that had known the Lord early in their life. Even if you lived 2,000 years and you had many children and you didn't live a satisfied life, what difference is that than the person that is on Skid Row that puts a bottle to his mouth every day and does not sleep until all that he has bought has been consumed, and he goes out into a stupor. And he lives on the street. He stinks. He's dirty. He's unclothed. He's uncouth. And I have preached in missions to such people and preached the love of Christ to them and told them there's one that loves you. Only way you're going to get off this merry-go-round to hell is that you turn your life over to him. He can take that drink and that desire for drink away, but you've got to want him to. He's not going to do it against your will. You've got to come to the place where you say, Lord, I'm sick of this life. I'm sick of my sin, and I want you to save me. When that happens, you can be a child of God. A person works so he can eat, but he's always hungry. That sometimes applies to me. I'm always hungry. Always. I told my wife all the time, I don't understand it. When I was younger, I was pretty content with 3 meals. But I said, now that I'm older, I said, 3 meals aren't enough. I'm hungry all the time. When are we going to eat something? And she'll tell me, well, 2 hours, 3 hours, but you can get a snack or something. Well, okay, but snacks don't really satisfy you, but they'll do in a pinch. And there are people who are hungry for every other thing in life. They don't know what it is, but they are hungry for it. Then he says here in verse where are we at? Verse 8. For what hath the wise more than the fool? What hath the poor that knoweth to walk before the living? So he's talking about the difference between what a person that's wise has and what a fool has. A person that is wise, he is going to learn how to conduct himself in society. A person that's foolish won't know how to conduct himself. But really what makes a difference in a wise person and a fool is his relationship with the Lord. That's when you become truly wise. And then he asks this question, to know how to walk. The only ones that know how to walk and conduct themselves are God's people. And thank God for those of you that are here today, because you're more content, you're happier than those that don't know the Lord. Those that don't know the Lord are still looking. They don't know what it is they're looking for, but they are looking for something. Now, I've witnessed to people that have told me they were not happy when I asked them, well, what do you think would make you happy? Well, I don't know. I've tried everything. And I'm telling you, Solomon talks out in these first few chapters about everything that the natural man looks for in life that make him happy. He looks for money, silver, gold. That doesn't make him happy. He gets more work and puts on many hours on that job. That doesn't make him happy. He acquires fields and fruit trees and servants and maidens, and he does all that he can to invest in the lives of those that he marries, and all the marriages that he has doesn't make him happy. Nothing makes him happy. So what's the answer? He has to come to know the Lord. And eventually Solomon talks about that, but right now he's talking about life lived from the natural point of view. Then he goes on to say, better is the sight of the eyes than the wandering of the desire. This is also vanity and vexation of spirit. That which hath been is named already, and is known that it is man. So that which has been named, man, is Adam. Adam had everything. And here's another example of somebody. He knew God, saw God face to face. He walked with God, fellowship with God. God allowed him to name the animals. You think about the animals, that every one of them carries the name that Adam gave it. Wise. An elephant would not be suitable to be named a mouse. A mouse would not be suitable to be named an elephant. I mean, if you think about all the things that he named, all the privileges that he had, and yet he disobeyed God in the one restriction. You can eat of every tree, you can enjoy all the fruit of this great garden, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you cannot eat it. And Adam did one thing that God told him not to do. What happened? He was no longer able to fellowship with God the same. His eyes, as Satan had promised him, did not open and allow him to be like God. That's what the lie was. God is unjust to deny you of that fruit, because he knows in the day you eat that fruit, you'll be just like God. His eyes were open, but that didn't happen that he was like God. His eyes were open, and now he looks at himself, he's embarrassed. He's ashamed because of his nakedness. He was not ashamed when he was in innocency, when he did what God told him to do. But the minute he violated the one thing that God told him not to do, he brought on himself sin, and he brought upon the creation of life. Wherefore, as by one man sin entered, and death by sin, and death passed upon all men, for all that all have sinned. Wherefore, as by one man Adam, sin entered the world. Death by sin, and so death passed upon all men, for that all have sinned. So he lost. And we know that God had to kill innocent animals, clothe him in the skins of those animals, for God to be able to fellowship with Adam and Eve. And then Adam and Eve had sons. They did not all live for God. One of them did, and he brings the very sacrifice God told him to bring, a blood sacrifice that typified the work of Christ. He was received. The other son brought the best of the fruit of the ground. I think he brought the best watermelons, the best peaches. He brought the best cabbages, the best tomatoes. He brought the best of what he had grown. God wouldn't accept that. He refused them. Why? Because it did not typify the sacrifice of Christ. And Cain went away from God, saying, my sin is greater than I can bear. Anytime you go away from God, your sin's going to be greater than you can bear. And people that go away from God are never happy. Cain was never happy. And now he goes on to say in verse 11, sin there be many things that increase vanity or that increase meaninglessness. What is man the better? If we had everything our heart could desire, would we be more spiritual? Would we be able to help improve on society if we had everything that our heart had its focus on? Would we be better off? Would we be like the Mormons? They're not happy, but they have plural wives. And they bring in children, many children into the world. The children fight. They leave the home. That's what they dreamed of having. Many wives as they could dream of having. And they're not happy. They're not happy. They war. I watched this program. I took it off, but I liked it. It was a program of these two sisters that were born to polygamous parents. And at one point where they were told they had to marry an older man, much older, whoever the bishop is, they tell them who to marry. They do not meet somebody, fall in love, and get married. So these girls were teenagers, and they decided they were going to leave, and they were going to start a group. I don't know what the name of it is. I forgot what the name of it is. That would get other people that wanted to leave under those conditions, get them out of there. They've got several of them out there. Have you ever seen it? One of them is a lawyer, one girl. They're out there somewhere in Nevada, somewhere in Colorado, Nevada. And they left, and they would take, they have two bodyguards. They'd have to, or they'd be killed. That goes in, and when anybody wants to leave, they go in, usually at night. And when these parents are away, they go in and take either the boy or the girl that wants to leave, and then they get them into an apartment building and get them a job, and they get out of that situation. But it's pathetic, the conditions that they have to be under, and yet there are people that think that's the ideal kind of life. It's a life that's lived in sin. It's a life that's lived in lustful want, and it's a life that the kids are not happy in. And many of those sisters, although they appear to accept each other, there's a lot of jealousy and a lot of things that goes on where one of the wives, when there's jealousy, has to leave and get her a house somewhere else, take her kids, and it's just a mess. And they thought that would be the ideal situation. Well, there's others that dreamed of having as much of this world's goods as they could have, and that would make them happy. There was a man, if I told you his name, I'll tell you his name in a little bit. He was a man that wanted as much of this world as he could have. He wanted to be the richest man in all the world, and he eventually became the richest man in the world. He got into making aircraft for the military. He made movies. He was a movie projectionist and a movie author. And those that get a script from somebody and then they put it into life on the film. He was one of those. The last 15 years of his life, he lived a recluse from society. Let his fingernails grow, let his hair grow. He had a phobia about germs. Nobody could come and see him unless they put on a gown. He had a special gown. Nobody could visit him, and he only had one man close to him that screened anybody wanted to see him. And most of the time, he screened them away. He lived buying hotels up. He had that kind of money. He would live in them and tell everybody else they have to leave because he did not want to be exposed to their germs. He said, there was germs they carry and I don't want to be infected. I've got the money. I'll buy the hotel. He'd buy the hotel, live there for a while. Then he'd move to another hotel, kick everybody out, buy that hotel and live there for a while. Only one man knew where he was. Now he lived a life of somebody that could own anything he wanted. They said he's the third richest man in all the world. His name was Howard Hughes. He did not enjoy his wealth. He had it, but he had to leave it to somebody else. They're still fighting. Heirs are still fighting over because he had so much money, claiming to be an heir to get part of that fortune that he had. They can't even tell you how much it is. It's so enormous amount of wealth that the man had. Would you like to live like that for 15 years? Live a life of a recluse? Scared that somebody is going to give you a germ that's going to kill you? That's how he lived. He had everything that he wanted, he thought, but he did not get to enjoy it. Now, verse 12 says, who knoweth what is good for man in this life? All the days of his vain life which he spendeth as a shadow. For who can tell a man what shall be after him under the sun? He's saying, we don't know what's going to come after us. We don't know if we have arrived where we're supposed to be and we're going to live a better life or not. Now, remember, they didn't have all the Bible. Had he known the teachings of Jesus, Jesus talked about life after death. Talks about in Matthew chapter 25, how that a person that knows him will spend eternity with him. Those in the last part of Matthew chapter 25 that don't know him will spend all their days in hell. He says it's a choice that men make. They make the right choice, God will honor it, and God will bless them. But many people do not know where they're going to spend eternity. It's better to enjoy what's in our sight than to want riches that we cannot see. For better is the sight of the eyes than the wandering of the desire. So the desire wanders once more than what the eye can see. That which is not possible is referred to as a wandering of the desire. We wander, our desire wanders for things. All I ever wanted to do since God saved me is to be able to learn the Bible in a way that I can theologically, wisely expose those truths that are hidden to other people by exposition. And I do expository preaching. That's the kind that God saved me under, and that's the kind of preacher I wanted to be. It is said that somewhere in New England they had a conference on theology, and they had people come that was pastors and theologians, and they were walking through a cemetery, and they saw on this graveside, says, here is buried a theologian and a pastor. And the girl said, Dad, there's two people buried in one grave, a theologian and a pastor. He said, don't you think a pastor can be a theologian? They're not saying there's two people there. They're saying he is a pastor and a theologian. That's who's buried there. Well, a lot of people don't think that a pastor can be a theologian. And some theologians don't think they can be a pastor. We're talking about that today. And I said that God gives you a pastor's heart. He gives you a ministry. And he gives you that which he knows that you're able to fill. He doesn't put you where you can't fit a niche. He puts you where you're going to fit in. And we're talking. I said, my wife said to him, do you ever want a pastor? He said, no. He said, no, at this point, I don't have a pastor's heart. I sat under a pastor. I see what pastors go through. And I see he has a pastor's heart. But he said, that's my father-in-law. But he said, I've been under him 10 years. I've learned a lot from him. But he said, I don't think that I have a pastor's heart. He said, I just don't think I have that. But at this point, I don't want to be a pastor. I'm glad for what I'm doing. Well, seeing there be many things that increase meaningless pursuits in life, one thing stands out that Solomon learned, and that is those that seek after God find everything, and they find everything that's satisfying, and they know how to spend their days under the sun. And so this is vexation of spirit when the spirit of man and his wantonness gets beyond what he has. Though he lives 2,000 years, verse 6, and sees no good, what good is it? So if you could live a long life, you're dissatisfied, you didn't find the Lord to bring satisfaction, what good would a long life be? I'm going to have to stop here. This is a great chapter. It's got a lot of questions, a lot of theology in it that you don't read anywhere else but in the book of Ecclesiastes. Some of these things that Solomon gave us, they're deep. I was asking a friend of mine, because he listens to the broadcast, the streams. I said, how do you like this study of Ecclesiastes? Because he listens to some of these sermons and listens to them 2 and 3 times. He said, that's deep stuff. He said, it is deep. I said, the reason God used the wisest of men, and he's wiser than them, and he didn't let us see it at just the first time we read it. I didn't even get to see it until I'd read it several dozen times and prayed over it. And you don't get to see it at first hand because it's there, but it's hidden in wisdom, the wisdom of Solomon and the wisdom of the Holy Spirit. And so it takes searching it out. But I just hope it's a blessing to you. I hope it's a blessing to those of you that are watching us. And I hope you'll get some of this deep stuff, if that's what it is, for your soul. Now, Father, I pray again, you'll bless the teaching of your word. And I pray that each one that came tonight would receive something that's needed. And I just love you, Lord. And I pray you'll continue to grow this church, continue to show us where you would have us to relocate, the one place that we can grow, and the one place, Lord, that we never have to leave again. So I pray for that building, and others are praying for it. And you said, where 2 or more gathered in my name, there will I be in the midst thereof. And if 2 of you agree on earth as touching anything, it'll be done. So there's more than 2 of us agreeing about that building. So I pray now you take us to our home. Thank you for all those that came. And I pray for the answer to prayer that we've received. And I pray there'd be many other answers to prayer. There's one listening that's never been saved. Lord, open their heart, open their eyes. Let them repent of their sin, and let them trust Christ as Savior. And let them study your word so they can get something out of your word that is meat for their soul. And I thank you for your love for us, Jesus. And I thank you for the love for sinners that you have. So I pray that you'll go with us and bring us back again at the appointed time. We ask it in Jesus' name.